Okay, so hopefully you can all now see my screen.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. It's nice to be along today. I'm sorry I can't stay for more than this, but you have Tom sitting in to represent us at EBI this time. What I've come to talk about this afternoon is really just give you a quick overview of what happened in the Education Summit this year. It feels a little bit like a lifetime ago, really, but in May this year, we held our Bioinformatics Education Summit for 2020. This was obviously a follow-on from the fantastic education summit we had out in Cape Town last year that Nicky and team hosted in the H3ABioNet, along with GOBLET and Elixir, etc. This year we were due to be hosted in Hingston, so we should have been at EBI, but obviously, unfortunately, with everything that happened, we couldn't, so we went virtual instead. And these are obviously all the different groups that supported the actual summit. So essentially we had 3.5 days of work. And across those 3 days, we had 33 people in attendance. There were at least 10 different countries. And we had at least 5 different time zones that we had to contend with. So many of us were kind of within that European time zone, but we had a number of colleagues in Australia. We had colleagues over in Latin America, the USA and Canada as well. So trying to gather as many of those people as we could together, similar to what you're having to do here. Was difficult, but we did manage to get everybody in, and we had some fantastic discussions. And this was our team photo just at the end, actually, with everybody's flags behind them. So in terms of what we were actually trying to do, obviously we had a number of goals set out at the beginning. The first of which was actually focused quite heavily around the ISCB Bioinformatics Competency Profile. So hopefully you're aware of the profile. Last year in Cape Town, we started working on version 3, which is really expanding out the competency profile to include knowledge, skills and behaviours. And really in the summit earlier this year, our goal was to get to the final version of that. However, not just actually having the final version of the profile, but also to ensure that we had all the associated guidance. So again, something else that we'd worked quite heavily on at last year's summit was to actually develop guidance for both trainers organising short courses and for lecturers, academics or academic teaching staff who are working on long courses to actually how to apply these competency profiles when actually designing those curricula. So again, it was looking at the actual framework, but also then to ensure that the guidance then reflected the changes in that competency profile as well. The other thing we wanted to do was actually, again, report back. So the previous versions have all been reported back to the community. Not just reporting back though, so again, not just as simple here as a competency profile, but also again being able to give examples of how the profile can be used. So not just the guidance, but also, you know, having real life case studies of where the competency profiles have been used successfully. Again, both in long course academic courses, such as undergraduate courses, master's courses, but also in the short course side of things as well. So again, it was trying to not only draft that paper, but also, you know, from the 33 people we had there, gathering some examples of its use, but also trying to gather new uses as well. So as I say, yes, this was goal 3, collate those examples. The next thing then, ISCB have now got approved processes to affiliate and endorse courses. These are both long and short courses. And again, the summit was a fantastic opportunity to really road test out those processes. So there are forms that go with it, information that's required, etc. So it's a good chance to have again a pool of people who work on short courses and to work on the long courses to really look at the processes involved. So look at, you know, what was needed for them to do to actually try and gain this affiliation or endorsement, so that again we could feed back into those processes before they're rolled out hopefully later on this year. From a GOBLET point of view, the one big bit of work again was looking at the GOBLET Training Resource Portal. So again in 2019 we'd collated a really nice set of essentially very useful information for trainers, covering a whole range of different things. So Michelle actually led on this, and this year really again we knew we were at the point where we could start thinking about actually putting that onto the website, and I believe it's due to go live if it hasn't already for today. But really it was again looking at that set of materials, links, information that we had there. Again, making sure that everything that was there was still current and was still live, and also adding in other things. So where there were gaps in there, where there wasn't quite as much information, trying to really bulk those up a bit more. Also during the summit then, we were looking at developing trainer guidance, and not surprisingly with the situation we're in, going virtual was definitely something that came up quite high in when we asked people what do they want to discuss. So we had 2 days, one day focused on around setting up bioinformatics courses in low and middle income countries. And then we also had a whole day of going virtual. From both of these, again, we've got some fantastic information, which is being worked into things that, you know, resources to be used by the training community. So the going virtual, we had some fantastic discussions around, you know, what are people actually doing? So what technologies are people using? What, you know, are we using Zoom? Are we using GoToMeeting, etc.? What are the challenges people are facing with going virtual, and how are they overcoming those challenges? Also looked a little at assessment, especially with regards to formal course assessment. So again, thinking about those kind of masters and undergraduates, and how were people dealing with that virtually. And then we just had some sort of general, you know, things that tips and guidance that you'd give somebody having tested out some of this stuff yourself. For the setting up bioinformatics courses in low and middle income countries, there's a really nice, again, a guidance document being put together to really help people, you know, things to think about when they're actually doing this. So they had a very long brainstorming session, and that brainstorming session again is being distilled into this guidance, along with the potential for a 10 simple rules paper as well. And we set the final goal, obviously similar to the AGM, making new friendships and renewing old ones and having some fun. The one thing that was missing, I guess, was the social elements. I mean, this was the big thing we definitely missed, and I'm sure it'll be similar with this, unfortunately. You know, we like getting together, we like seeing each other, and that was the one thing that we did miss. However, we did manage to get a lot of work done through the time that we were together. In terms of the event structure, just so you, in case you're interested, we ran it using Zoom live sessions. Again, so very similar to the structure that's being used for the GOBLET AGM. We had Slack workspace, we could have a chat in between, and we had Google Docs to structure and capture all of the discussions. Sessions either ran across half or full days. So we started at lunchtime on the first day, so we had a half day then, and then the second day was sort of two half days of sessions, then we had 2 full days. What we tried to do to enable everybody to come together was have these sort of lunchtime check-ins on day 2, 3 and 4, so that colleagues, for example, in Australia, who were coming, you know, later on in the day and struggling to maybe stay awake at that point, they could kind of, you know, they could be there to meet with the colleagues from US, Canada, Latin America, who were just getting into their days. So at least we could have some time point when we could try and get everybody together. And we had about 30 minutes together at that point. It also worked quite nicely where we had the full day of discussions. Again, we could have a morning check-in and afternoon check-out. So again, as people were joining, it could be a come in, you know, look, this is what we've done so far, this is where we're at. You know, it enabled them to get into it. Obviously, the Google Docs were open at all times. So anybody could come in and add comments and add their thoughts as we went through. And the whole thing was a mixture, so we had some short presentations and some, you know, some of it just sort of put things into context, or to show, you know, what had been achieved in the previous summit and where we were trying to get to with this one. There were some extremely lively discussions, lots of fantastic discussion, and then the collaborative work. And the nice thing with the collaborative work is often it was done where, you know, we'd all be working away on the Google Doc. Zoom would still be open, so we could see the other people, and we didn't necessarily need to chat. So it meant that those who wanted that chance to do their work just with a little bit of quiet could still, but they were still part of the session that was happening. And the nice thing was, looking across those 33 people, 85 to 90% of the people actually participated in all sessions. So it was really great to see that most people could be around and be involved in the sessions that we had. So as I said, we achieved a lot. And the nice thing, actually, this was a bit of feedback we got from somebody, that they were impressed at how much we did achieve. So the green ticks here are things that we did manage completely, and the pink was where there was still some work to be done. So we did finalise version 3 of the competency profile. And to be fair, we had to do a little bit of tidying up in the week afterwards, but it was done. And the guidance for its application is just about there. An outline draft was pulled together. so that we can report back. They were awaiting the final competency profile and some of the guidance to be ready to move to the next stage of that. And also then we were able to collate some really nice examples of how people were applying the competency profiles in their courses. We did road test the processes for affiliation endorsement, and again got some fantastic feedback to be able to work into those, even down to, you know, just sort of redesigning the web forms, etc., that are going to be used to actually capture the information. We did finish the job on refreshing and enhancing the GOBLET training resource portal, so able to look through that whole set of information. In terms of the trainer guidance on setting up bioinformatics courses in LMICs and going virtual, we have the results of the brainstorm there. The LMIC discussion is definitely forging ahead in terms of that guidance. The going virtual, we have a lot of information there. It needs refining a little, just to make it really tidied up so it's readable. Having said that, it has been used. A number of people have accessed it and looked at it. But what we'd like to do is actually combine the discussions that we had here with the outcomes from a similar discussion that was had during the workshop in education in bioinformatics at ISMB, because they complement each other quite nicely, so it makes sense to try and bring all of that together. And everybody agreed that they had enjoyed it and they'd managed to make new friends, see old friends, etc., even without the normal lovely dinner and drinks that we often have. So, as I say, in terms of next steps, the competency guidance needs working on, the paper, the piloting of the affiliation endorsement processes, because now we've road tested, they need to be piloted, and then the trainer guidance side of things. And obviously once this trainer guidance is actually developed, both for LMICs and for going virtual, these will obviously also be added to the GOBLET portal once complete. And we had a really good post-summit catch-up meeting last week to push forward with, again, a number of these different tasks. So I just thought I'd include a little bit of feedback on the summit. I think useful to see the feedback anyway, just from thinking about a virtual event point of view and running this in that way. But also knowing that obviously on Wednesday, we've got a discussion around the summit for 2021 and what we might like to do with that and where we might want to take it. In terms of the overall ratings, half and half, excellent, very good, which is always nice to see for an event. Best things, interactivity, collaboration, the fact that we still had that great knowledge share that we normally have, and as I said, the amount of work that we were able to complete within the circumstances. The worst things, yes, the lack of social interaction, the time zone hopping, and a slight lack of breaks, which was down to my forgetting to occasionally put in a lunch break, which I apologise to them profusely, and they coped with it. But as I say, was that time zone hopping was the difficult one in some respects. But with it being a short period, people were very forgiving on the fact that you know, they might have to get very early or stay up a bit later one particular day. In terms of whether people would attend a future virtual event in a similar format, again, most said yes. And again, the comments around the format were mostly incredibly positive. A number of them commented on the importance of having, you know, a very clear structure and clear aims for what we were working through. And many did feel that it was a good replacement for a face-to-face event. Looking towards 2021, again, we asked people, you know, what did they think? So what kind of event would they like to have? When might it happen? I look at the timings first, and most people did say that a similar timing to this year, which was the same as, again, in 2019, so that sort of May period would be preferable, because, again, that fitted in quite nicely with the calendar. In terms of the actual format, though, it was interesting that though combination event came up as, you know, something that over half of the people that were interested in, a number of people did comment on the, you know, sort of cautioned against this, really, because obviously one of the biggest issues is trying to manage where you have a large group of people face to face, and then potentially you've got a large group of people virtually. So, you know, how do you make sure that all of those who are attending virtually still get the same input? Now, again, this was something we had a quick chat through last week and talked about maybe even having hubs of groups in different places. But again, this is all, you know, there's still discussion. I think, again, when we come to the discussion on Wednesday, it may well be that we probably are still looking at a virtual event in next year. But let's see what we can do to make it just as good as an event as the last two events that we've hosted. And I think that's my last slide at that point. So I just like to say thank you, and happy, I'm sure along with Nicky, to answer any questions you may have about the event.